I'm Zach Elmblad, and this is a multi-part presentation, Borderline Vagabond. This is Chapter 15, and if you want to start at Chapter 1, you should click right here. Good. Chapter 15, Truckers. I had a girl, I said out loud, slowly shaking my head. To the silence, maybe to the road. I missed Jasmine, which is what I didn't want to have happen. That wasn't even her name. I tried not to think about it. I had to press on. Constant forward progression. The last thing I said to her was, "Maybe we'll see each other again some sunny day." Nice and melodramatic. A misty rain began to obscure the horizon as I carved my way through the United States, home to the Mitt. I couldn't help but let my mind wander toward what lay in wait for me there. I had quit my job just prior to this crazed expedition, which left a laundry list of actionable items for me to complete. Finding work was obviously something that needed to happen, but I wasn't so worried about it. I just didn't see a purpose in worrying about such trivial things. Sure, I'd find another job. I was a skilled and able employee. I'd work there and leave that one too eventually. No big deal, life goes on. I was beginning to think, more and more, that small details weren't really as important as the entire picture. Like these gorgeous mountains. Why focus on the fact that it's raining? Does the sun have to be shining on the mountains for them to be beautiful? Life was going to keep on going on. Things would inevitably change again and keep right on changing, if I liked it or not. My car was beat up from the tens of thousands of miles I put on it in my roaming over the years, and my bank account was drained from the long few weeks of shopping at truck stops and buying gasoline. Then, of course, there were the frivolous alcohol purchases, the chain-smoked cigarettes, the energy drinks, and the expenses of eating at restaurants several times daily. All things I should not have been doing, considering that all of my money was going out and none was coming back in. I had turned off the radio driving into West Virginia, and I was enjoying the sound of the tires rubbing the pavement at high speeds as I exhaled my cigarette smoke from the cracked window and stared blankly at, and sometimes through, the gathering mist. Was I running away from something? Was I trying to find a road that would never cross my path? What was I doing out there, wandering around the country, aimlessly searching for some abstract concept that no one seemed to be able to pin down? Had I found it? If so, how could I have had the hubris to find it and run, to ask the gods for something, and then to back away from it at the last second? Had my answer been the girl, the experience, both, or neither? At this time in my life, I had repeated this scene 1,000 times, always chasing some girl or some crazy adventure. I would come to some realization that life wasn't so bad, or that tomorrow would bring a new hope. This time, however, I felt empty and hollow. The road seemed to stretch on forever, and instead of seeing opportunity in that road on the horizon, all I saw was the long stretch I still had to travel. In that instant, the trip had turned from an idealistic pursuit to a sad homeward retreat. My only realization was that I probably wasn't going to live a life of endless pleasure, but one with an equal portion of painful sadness. I was going to let people down just as much as they let me down. Things would never be like they were before, and the world around me would remain in a constant state of change until I was dead, and even long after that. You never step in the same river twice. I pulled into a truck stop, sort of wishing I had gotten more distance before I pulled off. I needed to take a piss, get a cup of coffee, fill up the gas tank, and settle my nerves. I opted to take a seat in the restaurant, at a stool near the counter. I idly listened to the chatter of the waitresses. "It's all gone to hell around here anyway, Sheila, what with that TA gone in across the way and taking over all our business. People think they can come in here and walk out paying nothing. It ain't right. Not gonna happen on my watch, Shug." There was tension in the air. From what I could gather, someone had just tried to leave without paying. Old Sheila here had stepped in the man's way and confronted him. He had argued with her, saying he could have gotten the same breakfast at the TA for $1 less. Some dumb jackass trying to get something for free. They come in all shapes and sizes. "He can drive himself up there tomorrow and get himself a breakfast if he wants to. To hell with him." The daily monotonous routine of trash-talking customers. I knew it well. They must have been having one of those days. Bound to happen. I tried my best to make it really easy on the poor lady, considering I'd been in her shoes too many times to count. "Morning, Shug. Can I get you?" "Morning. Coffee. Black as night, bitter as my ex. How's your gravy today?" "Nice and fresh. Old Howard done cooked it up just a little while ago. He makes it the best." "Perfect. I'll go for half an order of biscuits and gravy and some rye toast with butter, if you've got it. If you don't have rye, whatever else you have will suit me just fine." "Rye it is. Anything else?" "No, ma'am, that'll do it." She walked back towards the busing station to sort out a few fresh piles of used dishes, dropping off my ticket in the cook's window as she walked past it. She was performing flawlessly. You could tell she'd been at this for years. There's a good chance old Sheila has been working at this restaurant since before I was born. Who knows what she might have seen in that time? I was staring blankly through the window on the far side of the room, watching the interstate traffic buzz past in the distance. I thought about how many people were in all those cars, trucks, and buses. Hundreds of them every few minutes, I'm sure. All of them off to somewhere, each one a different place. Maybe one of them was just like me. "You look like you got a story, buddy." I heard a voice from behind me just in time to feel the heavy smack of a man's hand on my shoulder and hear the sound of a large stack of paper being dropped on the counter to my right. "You could say that," I said over my coffee cup, not turning around. "Nice and melodramatic, too, I see." I laughed. It was funny. I wasn't really in the mood for conversation, but this guy didn't seem like he was going to waste my time with pleasantries. I offered my hand. "Don the trucker. Don for short," he snickered with a deep, throaty laugh. Anyone could have guessed that he was a trucker. He had the stereotype down to a near science. Rose-tinted, gold-framed glasses that looked like they were purchased in the 80s. A canvas 10-gallon hat, a black vinyl vest over a long-sleeve red flannel shirt with a bulge in the chest pocket, and a worn ring in the shape of a skull can, a long handlebar mustache, and the wretched stink of 1,000 gallons of gin. Oh yeah, and foul coffee breath. I suppose he buys clothes at truck stops and wears them until they're utterly destroyed. Maybe he'd wash the set on the rare occasion that he visited home, wherever it was. His world was the tractor-trailer and the open road, neither of which care if you stink like the dead. He was an all-right guy, despite his pungent aroma. One you knew wasn't going to give you a line of shit, at least. "What are you here for, vagabond? Business or pleasure? Coming or going?" Sounds rehearsed. "It is. Don't be cynical. I'm friendly folk." Fair enough. All the above, you could say. Headed away from Chapel Hill, I know that much. Headed home to a fuck nest of misery in the state of Michigan, eventually, but have plenty of time to get there. I came down mostly for pleasure, which, as far as the present is concerned, is my business. I hate Michigan. Fucking roads are shit. You're telling me, man, I lost track of how many ruined tires I've had from those fucking potholes. What are you doing in Chapel Hill? Got yourself a nice college girl? Nice tight piece of ass? In town to see my buddy. Met a girl, too. Had to leave her, though. I don't belong here. I need to figure some shit out. My opinion, and you can take it for what it's worth, would be to stay where the pussy is. I'd say that's a solid opinion, Don, and I'd normally agree with you. Michigan pussy is remarkably similar to North Carolina pussy, though, and I gotta get home. Ah, Big dreams back in the, what'd you call it? Fuck nest of misery? Well, I suppose that's a bit of an overgeneralization. I never would have guessed. I sometimes forget that I exaggerate some things and that people don't understand that I'm exaggerating them to make an example and further illustrate my point. That'll happen. Sure will. What you haulin'? Socks. He said it flatly, without emotion, and took a short sip of his coffee. At least you're getting paid. I don't do gratis, amigo. Hablas español? Hablo fucking Mexican. Spend a bit of time south of the border, did you? Sure did. Haulin'? It's the Vita. How do you like it? Hauling, I mean. Not Mexico. I kinda heard mixed reports about the gig. You'll hear mixed reports about both. Hauling seems to suit me just fine, but I can see how it might not cut the mustard for some folks. It takes a certain kind of beast to do this job properly and not lose your mind. Much like any job, I guess. Some people are better at it than others. I can imagine. Whole lot of idiots on the road, man. Shitty weather, long periods of time spent alone in silence. That could render some folks insane, I reckon. I slipped into the accent for just a second there. I never say reckon, but I'd spent a few days in the South and had started to absorb the vernacular. Kind of like when I get drunk with Mexicans and start speaking Spanglish. Maybe not insane, but you have to have a bit of a crazy streak in you if you want to make a living at this. Gotta be able to deal with a whole lot of bureaucracy, too. Plenty of red tape, sure. That kind of shit is everywhere. Gotta take scheduled breaks and all that dumb shit, too. Oh yeah, you betcha. I can only be on the road 14 hours a day, and that includes time spent queued up at the weigh-ins and breaks. Damn near cut what I can make in half. Back in the 80s, man, I'd pull down a few 24-hour days in a long week and make bank. That shit never happens these days. Bunch of pussies complaining about a few long days. There's no room left in this world for a real man. Only thieves, liars, and suckers. You don't have to tell me that, Don. I'm of the opinion that humanity has reduced itself into a mass of spoon-fed idiot debt slaves, myself included. Yeah, same here. Gotta include ourselves in that awful generalization, too. I'd say we're both part of humanity. Every savage bone in our bodies. Just like the rest of them. I had a buddy of mine that I worked with, used to point at hot chicks when he was drunk and say, "That chick's hot, huh? Bet you want to fuck her, too." But guess what, dude? Somebody, somewhere, is totally sick of her bullshit. Everybody's an asshole in some fucking way. Don't forget it. I didn't. I agree with him more every day. Sheila snuck up on us while we were sitting there talking. I nearly knocked the carafe out of her hand, and I would have if she wasn't so responsive. I was frantically gesticulating, mimicking my friend telling me those words with a wildly pointed index finger, waving it in a way only a man drunk on half a bottle of Kettle One can point. She expertly backed up on her heels, my hand missing the carafe by fractions of an inch. "Whoa there! Calm down for a second. I'm just trying to get you boys some coffee." "He don't mean no harm," said Don. "Oh, I know it shook. Spooked me a bit is all. I won't be taken down so easily." "Sorry, Sheila. I really was sorry. I have a tendency to move as I speak, and the movement of my hands is frantic and haphazard. It sort of fucks things up sometimes." "No problem, kid. Here's your half of biscuits and some rye toast. Can I get you, Donnie?" "Bacon and eggs, dearie, sunny side up." "Toast?" "English muffin. Why don't you go ahead and top off my coffee while you're here, too, sweetie?" "Limey biscuit, coming right up." She scribbled on her pad of guest checks and dropped it off to the cooks. Damn, that's archaic. "Not down here. This is the Bible Belt, son. If your skin isn't white, or you don't pray to Jesus every night, you'll get nowhere with some of these folks." "I say that's a goddamn shame." "True, but you can't change it. You can't get through to some people. You can't fix stupid. Only show it how to get smarter on its own." "I know." I looked down at my cup again, turning it in circles between my hands. "So, tell me, how do you make yourself a living, Mr. Vagabond?" Don said, turning toward me after blatantly watching Sheila's old wrinkly ass as she walked back towards the bus cart. That kind of grossed me out a little, but I guess old people think other old people are attractive. I shook it off. "That's a bit of a loaded question these days, I'm afraid." "How so? Running something? I won't tell nobody. Gotta do what you gotta do. Can't say my past is free of it." No, nothing like that. My drug use is mostly relegated to infrequent dabblings these days. Lost its fun a while ago. So what's the score then? Well, I'm an author as it stands, but the money is shit. Couldn't possibly live on the few bucks I've made doing that. What's the plan then? What'd you do before that? I've worked full time since I was 18, hit the ground running, dropped out of college at 20, tired of the irony of being surrounded by worldly ineptitude in the academic environment, probably not going back. I've kind of been driving around on my spare time these last few years, trying to figure out exactly what it was I wanted to do with myself. Find anything? Only more questions, really. That's how it goes. Could have stayed at home. Once you get what you want, then what do you do? Where do you go from there? On to the next adventure, I guess. So where was the last one? I've been a restaurant man by trade. Not so sure it's going to be my life's work, though, you know? My dreams are so much bigger than customer service. I drained my savings account when I came down here. Word has it my unemployment claim might go through, but it's hard to say. I don't like to count my chickens before they hatch. The guilt of unemployment insurance will definitely eat at me until I find something to do. This kind of uncertainty is weird for me. I've never had it before. It was always do work and get paid for me, always depending on someone else to stamp a signature on a paycheck. I don't want my life to be like that anymore. I don't want to live for other people. I want to make money for myself, doing things I'm good at. I've made other people hundreds of thousands of dollars, and at the same time, only tens of thousands for myself. I don't like that. The money was made on my back, through my leadership, as a result of my ability. I know what I've run away from, but I don't know what the next step is. What is it you want to do? You can't find anything you aren't looking for, you know. I have no idea what I'm looking for, Don. I always used to just take it as it comes, to keep on trucking, but I'm starting to feel a bit old. I want to find something to do for the rest of my life and be proud of it. I don't want to wander around aimlessly anymore. I want to wander around for a purpose. You got to figure out what it is you want to do before you can go out and get it. You'll find it soon, don't worry. Sounds like you got the heart for it. He was right. I would find it soon. I had to. The whole damn purpose of this trip had been to find my American dream, and it all connected right there over coffee with Don the trucker. Plainly speaking, I was searching for something that didn't exist. Not that I thought the dream was a farce, but more of a hypothetical kind of thing that people wished for but never actually got. I had to learn to accept what I had asked for. It's a tired message, but it's still true. Rags to riches takes a lot more work than riches to rags. There are no free rides, no free lunches. Nobody can spare much more than a dime, and they don't even want to give you that much. No matter what you get, it's never enough. There's never any capital for your wild ideas unless you work hard and make it for yourself. People want things that sell, ideas that intrigue. Until you prove that you have what it takes to come up with those ideas, no one will pay any attention to you. There's plenty of livestock at the market, and it's all in how good the lipstick makes the pig look. The American dream is just another dumb metaphor for hipster poets to jack off onto a page. Some cheap phrase to knock about at parties and bars as if you know something that someone else doesn't. You don't. How had I decided that finding myself by wandering around aimlessly for years on end was a good idea? It almost seemed childish in this context, sitting among my elders. Both of them sure were working a lot harder than I was at the time. Sheila was slaving away at the restaurant game well into her 60s. Don had to have been my father's age, both of them still working their asses off, just like I'd be in another 25 years. I just wanted to be slaving away at something I enjoyed, even if only passively. All that time I spent wandering around, and I could have been like Don the trucker. He wanted to drive around and see the sights, like me, so he did, like me. The thing he did differently, though, was the really good idea that had never dawned on me. He got paid to do it. That's the problem. I wasn't getting paid to empty my savings account and fuck off to North Carolina on some fruitless holy roller quest to find an intangible concept. I should have been at home working hard to make my dreams come true. I wasn't going to find my dreams on the side of some rutted out patch of mountain road in the rain. You're right, Don. I will. I know it. I have to figure out what it is I really want out of life before I can expect to get it. That might be some of the best advice I've ever gotten. See, now you're thinking. Maybe a few of you dumb fuck kids can learn after all. Don't get me started on my peers, man. He was laughing so hard he nearly choked himself. He punched his chest a few times. Yeah, we thought sticking daisies in rifles and growing out our hair was rebellious. You damn kids gotta go off hanging yourselves and cutting your wrists because your single mother worked 2 jobs and wasn't around to keep your ungrateful ass in check. Rebel, rebel. Watch out, dude. My mother is a fucking saint. Oh, you know I'm not saying shit about your mom. She obviously did a fine job. Damn right she did. It's easy to teach people how to do things, but it isn't easy to teach them how to think. I never want children. You will. Doubt it. You will. We had our first silent moment in quite a while, both of us watching the steam rise from our coffee cups. We parted ways as people so often do, not too long after breakfast. I had to get home to figure out what the hell I was going to do with myself, and Don the trucker had to keep on trucking. I had liberated myself from the job I had hated, and I set out to find the American dream. Had I found it? All I was sure of was that I had found myself in hot-blooded pursuit of what I had casually referred to as the main nerve, which had manifested itself in an electric little fantasy girl that reminded me a little too much of what I didn't want. I was now headed home to find a way to make sense of it all. What was next?